In this video, we're going to talk about the first of the Retopoflow tools, which is PolyPen, but also how to use Blender's tools alongside PolyPen. To get started, just like we did in the last video, I'm going to hit Shift-A, go to Mesh, and Retopology at Cursor. That's going to create a new empty mesh object that we can start our retopology from, and it's going to jump us right into edit mode and right into PolyPen. To create new geometry with PolyPen, all I need to do is hover my mouse over the surface of another object, hold down Control, and left click. That's going to create a new vertex wherever I click, and if I continue holding down Control, then you'll notice that with that vertex still selected, I'm getting a dashed line between that and my cursor. If I click again, then it's going to create that edge that was visualized. And if I continue holding down Control and still have that edge selected, then it's going to visualize a triangle. I can left click to place a point of the triangle. And if I do that one more time with that triangle still selected, it's going to create a quad. This way I can make any core mesh component very quickly. If I were to deselect this face here and hold down Control, then it would start that process all over again, just by placing points in empty space, then creating an edge, then creating a triangle, and then creating a quad. However, if I have something selected, then it's going to try to extend that selection. So if I have this face selected, then it's going to try to create a triangle out of whichever edge of this face the cursor is closest to. So if I want to extend in this direction, then I can create a triangle and again a quad. If I wanted to be really specific about only extruding from one of these edges, then I can select that and then work from there. PolyPen snaps really nicely to any other vertex. So if I wanted to finish up this section here and create a large rectangle, then what I could do is select one of the edges, hold down Control, and simply click on any of the other vertices, and then make that last corner, and that's going to complete that patch. PolyPen is also really great at bridging two edges together. So for example, if I select this edge down here, hold down Control and hover over any other edge that's close by, I can left click and fill that section. PolyPen has a couple options for its insert mode, which you can get to in the top left of the tool header, or if you go to the tool properties in the properties editor over here, or also if you want to go to the sidebar under tool, you can find the same options here. For now, I'll use the properties editor. Here I'll switch the insert method to vertex, and then no matter what's selected, even if I have everything selected and I hold down Control, I'm only going to be placing vertices. If I were to switch to edge select mode, then it's going to try to extend from the nearest vertex and only create edges. If I switch this to triangle, then it will create tris and then not complete them into quads, just like so. And if I set this to quad, then I can quickly extend a set of quads. The quad mode is the only one that has a second option to it, and that's the quad stability. If I decrease that, then as I try to extend and move my cursor, you can see that it moves pretty wildly and tries to twist with the cursor. But with a value of 1, that is nice and gentle. So it depends on how quickly you want this to twist around. And with this tool, you can quickly fill in all sorts of areas. The quad mode also snaps. So if you want to extend a selection, just make sure that both ends are pretty close to the vertex. You can see here it's not quite close enough to snap to both. So what I'll do is just move one a little bit closer. Or maybe not. Still not snapping. And so this brings up a really good point. With a lot of the tools in Retopoflow, what you select makes a huge difference on how easy a task is. So for example, here, trying to extend from this bottom edge, it's not quite snapping as I'd like. However, if I were to select one of our side edges here, then filling in this section would be very easy. And that general rule is true throughout all of the Retopoflow tools. What you select makes a huge difference on how easy the task is that you're trying to accomplish. What you select is going to be your starting point, and picking a good starting point is going to make things a lot easier for you. Now, I'll undo that because there's another thing that I want to show you. I'll also go ahead and delete this face here. X and delete faces, and I'll select this edge down here at the bottom. Blender has a default command that if you select an edge and it has two edges kind of extruding from it, and it can guess what quad you want to fill, then you can simply select an edge and tap F, and it's going to fill up to that next edge. So if I wanted to fill this whole section, I could simply select this edge, tap F twice, and be done. That's not a Retopoflow specific thing, that's just a really handy Blender tool. And if you want to learn more about that, then you can look at older tutorials for the F2 add-on, which is where that came from originally, but it's all sorts of handy. For example, I can also just select this vertex that's at a intersection of two others, hit F, and it'll jump to fill a triangle there. So that's one that I use all the time, but there are a couple other Blender commands that I'm using constantly while I'm using Retopoflow as well. For example, since I'm using my left click and drag to tweak things, I'll use the B hotkey to box select. Or I can hold down Control and then right click and drag to lasso select. This might be a little bit different for you based on what your key map is, but I'm using basically the default Blender key map, and so it makes things really easy to select, lasso select, and also tweak all at the same time. Another cool thing that PolyPen can do is be used as a knife. So if I select this edge here and try to create something outside of the mesh, it's going to try to extrude it. However, if I were to left click directly on this edge while holding Control, then it's going to add a new point into that edge. And then with that vertex still selected, I can move to the next edge and the next one and the next one and knife all the way through. And the result of this knife is going to be snapped to the surface. You can also use Blender's knife tool, which has a lot more features. Blender's knife is extremely powerful, but one downside is that it doesn't snap the result to the surface. So I can do all sorts of topology things here, right click and make a new cut, and then just hit enter whenever I'm finished. But that result is not going to be snapped, and you can see that kind of here. So there's a couple things to this. One, we want to automatically snap the result of Blender's knife in the future. That's something that we'll work on. But in the meantime, we also have this cleanup tool here at the top that can do all sorts of cleanup actions for you. So here we want it to definitely snap to the surface, but it's also going to merge by distance, check the normals, and things like that. And then when you click the little play button, it's going to clean up the selected geometry. So when I hit the play button now, then you'll see that's going to jump right to the surface, and our knife has been fixed. So let's try that again just to get used to it. I'll hit K, really quickly do a knife action, hit enter to confirm. Notice that it's not on the surface, but I can hit the play button and snap that to the surface. A faster way to get to this command if you use it often is by using the pie menu. The pie menu for Retopoflow is W, and that's going to allow you to switch between all of your tools, but also clean up your vertices. So if we were to make another knife cut, I'll hit K, drag across the edges, hit enter, then I can hit W and just clean up selected, and that's going to snap everything right to the surface. Again, in future versions, we're hoping to snap everything that Blender does automatically, but for now, only the Retopoflow specific tools are guaranteed to be snapped. Same thing with edge loops. If you make an edge loop and then confirm it and slide, Blender's going to snap it, but there are some cases where you can put it in an edge loop and it doesn't snap. For example, if you cancel it with the escape key and it only cancels the movement and not the cut itself, then you're going to need to clean that up as well. Same thing is true with beveling. If I were to bevel this loop, again, that's not going to be snapped, so clean that up. And the main point is that Blender's tools aren't going to be snapped to the surface. The Retopoflow tools are, but if you use Blender tools, then you can just select everything and clean up, or just clean up the entire mesh all at once. Okay, I think that's it for PolyPen. The tool itself doesn't have a ton of options, and at the same time, it's one of the most powerful tools just because of how precise it allows you to be.